Right. Enlarge the PowerPoint. So today, again, we'll run through this and we'll bring it through it. Now, some of you may already have done some marketing, so some of this might be already familiar to you. But nevertheless, we'll tip down through it. Primarily because, again, in projects, you might be developing a project for a product or a project for a service, and some of these fundamentals are important in that context. Just let me get this focused onto that, and we have this here. So if we look at, as we call it, the tangibility spectrum of products and services, and this is just some of the key differences between a product and a service. So if you look here, you have these examples, from salt down to fast food outlets and so on, which are going over both sides. Now, technically, I would always define fast food outlets as a service. You're buying a product, but they're providing a service. Okay. Then as you move down, you have advertising agencies, all the way down to teaching. God love you. It's a service. Investment management, consulting, banking, all these things. Your credit card, all of that sort of stuff. They're all services. You might say, well, the credit card is a physical product. In those services, they refer to them as their different products. You have a business card, business version. You might have a personal version. You might have personalized. You might have celebrity status, business credit cards, and so on, and high value. They refer to them as the different products. Like mortgages would be, they'd have different types of mortgages. They refer to them as products, but they're actual services that they're providing. And the key point about it is you can't store them. You can't store services, and that's one of it's probably the main differentiator between products and services. And also, services are consumed in real time. Okay, so when you go to a doctor, it happens there and then. You can't store it. It actually happens. That's the interaction. But that interaction between you and your doctor, or you and your consultant, that's another knowledge generating opportunity as well, by the way. So again, heterogeneity, goods and services, intangibility, simultaneous production and consumption when we look at services, and services can expire, so do products. There's obsolescence, and they can have multiple uses when we look at heterogeneity. But so the implications, as I've kind of already mentioned, they can't be stored, they can't be inventoried. A service, and that's why, for example, if you're like me and you like to go to McDonald's every so often, you will notice that they might have different levels of staffing inside there, so they try to predict the volumes of customers that they're going to see. So obviously at the weekends, McDonald's, well, when we're not in lockdowns, doesn't matter, but generally speaking, they will have a lot more staff on, and they'll have more delivery of their products to be able to provide the service to customers at weekends, more so than during the week. And then there are different times of the day, so again, they have to be able to match the demand of customers for the service with their staff and raw materials to make their burgers, chips, and whatever else they make. So that's they can't store that. They can't. Now you say, well, they do store burgers and all that. They're just the raw materials. The point is the service. There's no point in having two people working in McDonald's on a Saturday and Sunday when they might have hundreds and hundreds of customers coming through the shop and queues going out. That doesn't work. So they have to match the level. So they might have 5 people working on the service tills to make sure that they keep the flow. And they do have it down to that waiting time. They're constantly measuring and taking phenomenal data to see what the queues are like. And the same for example in Euro Disney, when it's functioning. They wouldn't have as many staff on during the winter months, except for maybe Christmas. They might have to beef it up because they do special deals and so on. So they'd have to ramp up their service staff to provide the entertainment and so on. And then it peaks up during the summer. But there will be parts of the year, maybe autumn and spring, where they'd have very small or skeleton staff and so on. Otherwise, it would be a huge cost for them. And again, services can't be patented. Okay. I mean, much and all, as I deliver these fantastic lectures and I say, the way I do it, could I patent them? No, you can't patent anything as a service. You can patent products, most certainly. And services cannot be readily displayed or communicated. No, because there is a level of uniqueness about services. And, you know, you might talk about banks offering products on TV, for example. And they're communicating, but they're communicating product. Now come in and we'll deliver the service of getting that mortgage product suitable for you. So it's unique. It's a very, very unique experience. Now on a larger scale, if you take entertainment and you go to a rock concert, that's a little bit more like it. You know, you do have some levels of pre-communication, saying there is a concert, you two are playing up in Croke Park or whatever it is, and you'll get maybe 60,000 people will go to a concert and so on. But that's all. You have that 2-hour concert and that's it. It's a service that's provided, an entertainment service provided, and is communicated through advertising and so on. And pricing can be difficult, and clearly so, depending on the services being offered. So if you take, again, let's use the example of your local doctor. Now, every time we go to a doctor, it will cost us €60. We all have different complaints. We'll have different issues. I could go into my doctor, do my bloods, whatever it is, annual checkup thing, and it might only take 5 minutes. I'd still get charged €60. Do I think I'm getting value for money? No. I go to the consultant to check my knee. I spent literally 7 minutes with my consultant 2 weeks ago before he decided to operate, and he charged me €200. And I said, wow, I'm definitely in the wrong job. I should have studied harder at school and taken up medicine. But the point about it is that the pricing, how do we perceive value? Now, I might have said, that was a very high price to pay for this guy just to move my knee around and say, yes, we need to operate. Can you come in next Tuesday? And I say, yes, I can, and so on. Now, I look at the bigger picture and said, that was value for money because I got the procedure done very, very quickly. It means that I'm now in recovery mode for the next 2 weeks. And when my knee is fully functional again, I can get out and do what I enjoy doing, which is cycling. Okay? And that's it. So for me, the price was reasonable. Now, if I didn't have the money to pay for these and didn't have medical insurance service, then it would be a whole different situation. I would have to suffer on with, indefinitely until problems get solved. So pricing can be difficult, and to see value, that's where it's not so much putting a figure or a number on the doctor's visits or the consultant's visit. That's not the issue. It's from the customer's perception or perspective to understand, well, what's the value of this to me? Okay. I know this isn't fair me drinking coffee now, but I actually needed it because I was so wound up with the problems with the audio and all of this before I literally came down to a minute before I came online that I found what the problem was. As a matter of interest, to try and provide a service. Yesterday I went on for a meeting with the Department of Lifelong Learning, and they want to use MS Teams. Now, I prefer MS Teams personally, but we normally use Zoom. And when I was using MS Teams, there was an issue with the audio, and I changed from my one particular setting to another and so on. And then this morning I said, right, I need to reboot my machine to clean out any memory and all that. And I did that, and then I noticed when I always do a check beforehand, and I noticed that my volume on the microphone here was way down, and I tested some recordings, and I said I can't deliver. There's a problem here, and I eventually found it. Microsoft, God, when I used Microsoft Teams, it automatically reset the volume of the microphone to its default 0. And I was wondering, because I had my microphone pushed up to 300%, and I still wasn't getting the volume and the quality coming out. And there are a lot of filters on these microphones for compression, suppression of noise, background noise, um, audio equalization, gain, and so on. It's unbelievable the amount of stuff that has to be done. But anyway, that was the problem with it. So anyway, we're sorted, I think. Anyway, pricing is extremely difficult, as we say then, and when it comes to services. So the implications of heterogeneity. So service delivery and customer satisfaction depend on employee actions. Very, very important point. And I'll come down through it. And service quality depends on many uncontrollable factors, and there's no sure knowledge that the service delivered matches what was planned and promoted. Now that's where the real difficulty comes in when we're talking about services. And if you look at these, the customer satisfaction, how do you know customers are satisfied with a service? I could have said that when the orthopedic consultant charged me €200 for 7 minutes, that I was very unsatisfied. Okay, I said, this is a really crazy amount of money to pay for 7 minutes of this guy's stretching my knee. But when you think about it, and you think practically about it, you say, well, this guy has spent maybe 20, 30, 40 years. He has amassed phenomenal knowledge in specialist area. That's what you're paying for. Not the fact that he twisted your knee to see is it really bad and all this, plus taken MRI scans previously, and so that accumulated knowledge, when you stand back and say, that's why you're paying. So then you become a little bit more satisfied with the cost, and you begin to see the value of it. So the service delivery at the time may not seem much. If you want to simplify it even more, if you have a room and you want to paint the room, and you hire in a painter, and he charges you €700 for a small room, and you say, my God, that's an awful amount of money. I could do it myself for maybe €60 and so on. Then you start to evaluate, well, okay, 60. Will I get the same quality of job? Will I have the same finish? I'll have to take time off work, blah, 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 blah. So I start to evaluate the cost. And the painter said, well, I can be in and I can do this in 1 day. And you say, well, okay, that's it. Otherwise, I'd have to take time out, a weekend maybe, and so on and so on. And I'm not skilled well, I can paint personally, but you hired a guy in. So how do we put value on that service? He's only providing a service. You pick the color, and he buys the paint based on the color you choose. And you might decide, well, how do I put €700 value on this? He arrives to your house, you bring him in, you bring him to the room, he starts to clear out the furniture, and then you see that he goes into a lot of effort in putting masking tape up, checking everything, brushing down the walls, cleaning, washing the walls, cleaning all the woodwork around on the skirting board, maybe even taking off the lighting fittings, switches, taking them out, or taping up everything. And you see all this, and it could be lunchtime, and he still hasn't opened a tin of paint. Then he covers everything, covers the ground and so on and so forth. Then he'll go in and he'll go to the corners and the top edges, and he'll paint in on all of these areas, and he'll probably do it twice. It's what's known as cutting in, if you're familiar with painting. And it could be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock before he actually takes out the roller and starts painting. And then he comes back and he gives it another coat of paint, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. So 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, then the job is done. He starts cleaning up, taking out. So by 6 o'clock, he's taken everything out. And what do you look for? You look and say, yeah, that's a lovely job. I like the paintwork there. That's nice. You'll start looking at the floor. You're looking at the skirting board. You're looking at the fittings to see are there any splashes of paint on these things. That's how we judge and say, that was a great job. I'm really happy with that. It looks fresh. It looks nice. That's the quality. that we put on. That's how we measure. We use the tangibles. We use the things that we can see, that we can identify, to say that he provided a good service as a painter. Okay? And it's the same for if you bring your car down to a mechanic, it's chugging, it doesn't feel right, and so on. He provides a service, he fixes bits, he changes some oil, he does this, that, and the other thing, tunes this, and you drive away and it feels good and it accelerates a little bit better. You're paying for his service as a mechanic, and that's what you say. The car is going great. He's a really good mechanic. They're the kind of, how do you say, the independent variables that we use to measure the quality of a delivery of a service, and that's fine. And now this is the other point about it. We all have different expectations. Each customer is unique, and what might be important to you is might not be as important to somebody else. If we stick with the painter example, someone might say that I liked the way he went about his job. I was really impressed. That's my measure of quality. Someone might say I like the color and the finish. Or someone else might say I like the fact that he was in and out in the time he said he was coming. Or someone might say he arrived exactly on time at 9 o'clock in the morning, precisely when he said. That impressed me. So we have all these different things going on that we use as a way of measuring the quality of the service itself. Now, there is a whole process that I'll probably show you at some stage. It's called the serve-qual model. And in other words, how do we understand these different services from an organization perspective, internally and externally? But I will come back to that at another stage. So these are these issues or the implications, and I would say uncontrollable factors. So anything, if you take any one of the services, if you take McDonald's being a service, now they only have drive-throughs, for example. So do we consider the quality of McDonald's service to have dropped? Probably not, because our expectations have changed. They have been forced to be changed because of COVID and lockdown and drive-through and all that. But during normal operating times, we'll see how long were we standing in the queue. And if you go to McDonald's, let's just say you went there on a Thursday morning and you found that the queues were long. Why? Because there was a school bus, a school outing, and they happened to stop off at the same time, and you went in there and you felt that there was either no seats there internally, or you were waiting in the queue too long because you chose the wrong time. So these factors, they're from you as a customer's perspective, they're uncontrollable. From McDonald's, they try to control them. And they actually do. They do ask companies to ring ahead, or ask school tours to ring ahead if you're going to use their facilities and so on, which oftentimes they do, such that they have the right amount of staff there, and that their regular customers, should we say, or non-school customers, can get the same level of service. So things can happen in that are outside our control, that can seriously affect the service. Your bank decides to do an upgrade of their IT system during the night, and you go to your ATM and you can't withdraw money and so on. They're uncontrollables, so we have to learn to live with them and so on. So the logic would say that, I went to the ATM at 2 o'clock in the morning and I found that they're out of service and so on. Did it before, I won't do it again. I'll either get my money out earlier or wait till later in the day. Things like that can happen. So, they affect us. So the implications of simultaneous production and consumption. So consumers participate in and affect the transaction. Using the example of a doctor again and your interaction there. So you're the customer and he's the service provider. He can only act on the information that you're giving him. And if it's vague, he's going to find it more and more difficult to analyze or diagnose what's wrong with him. If you're precise and you give key information, you might not realize that you're giving key information. He can make his diagnosis far more efficiently. I'll use my own example again. This bloody knee. Oh dear. What's my? Does this work? Sorry. Okay, we have there. Don't need to get these things running. Sorry about this. There's just I hit the wrong button there. Um, Using that example, when I first went to my local doctor, I said to him, right, I my knee is giving me trouble. How did I suspect my because it was getting stiff when I'd get out of a chair. Okay. And then I went to my doctor and I was saying that I've been sedentary for the last several months because of online learning and I'm in the seated position. I actually can get up and stand and walk. I reconfigured all my cameras and so on to allow me to do that. I can't do it today, but normally I would. And he said to me, yeah, he said there's a bit of swelling on your knee. He said I'm going to recommend you go for an MRI and get a checkout. And I went for an MRI and they discovered that there was a tear in my meniscus, a complex tear on my meniscus, which requires keyhole surgery most likely. So he came back with the analysis of the MRI and then recommended going to the consultant. So the consultant says, yes, he said, definitely. And I said, the only thing I can think of was 6 years ago, I was lifting something and I sprained my knee. I was carrying some wood from one location to another and I was under a lot of pressure in this carrying. And how I noticed this problem was when I was out cycling last season. I have power meters on my bike and my left leg was more powerful than my right leg, 55% versus 45%. I said, that's not natural. I'm normally right-footed, so I would have expected to be the other way around. And so I was telling him this. Plus, I said the fact that I've been sitting for the last number of months, it's been, as I say, acting up. So I was given all this information, and that's how they assessed and said, definitely the MRI is confirming what you're saying, and blah blah blah. So we can do something about it. So that was the whole interaction, and it was quite quick. And but if I was saying, I've just got a pain in my knee, so what? Exercise, walk around, do something. And so you have to be very explicit. So the quality of the service that you get will depend on the customer's interaction and how much information they give. If you were applying for a mortgage and you didn't give all your financial details about your past spends and so on and so forth, and you get refused the mortgage, it's because you might not have interacted correctly or not provided the right information. You become frustrated with the mortgage provider or the bank as such. But a lot of the time, it can be your fault because you haven't given all the information or the precise details. And then they say customers affect each other. That's again a very important point, because if you have a queue, people will talk. It's and start sharing issues, and that can change your own dynamics. But also, you might be talking about services. You might recommend a particular painter, and that's why, for example, customers say he's a very good painter or he's a very good mechanic. Communications is so important, and oftentimes in marketing, verbal communications account for almost 80% of marketing across different services and products. That was most definitely the case up to maybe 10-15 years ago. Now that verbal version is your social media. So people talk, and that's why you have these influencers. God almighty. Social media influencers. Yourself, you're probably following some fashion people or whatever, and because they recommend this and TikTok and Instagram and they'll advertise this is the new form of verbal communication. And sometimes you might ask them, what do you think of this product? And they'll say, yeah, this, and this. So people talk, and that can make or break a service very, very, very quickly. And then employees affect the service outcome, of course. That's one of the key points in the 7P's, and that's the process part of it. And what it means is that it's how knowledgeable employees are of the actual service or product. Okay, it's not solely about the service. A lot of the big stores, M&S, B&Q, Asda, Aldi, Lidl, Woody's, take any of those. done stores. In the last number of years, they've invested a lot of money into employee training. And the reason being that if you noticed that they help you a lot more, because it's important that they provide the right information for you to make a decision to make a purchase, sell products. Many years ago, it was a case if you ask somebody, they say, well, sorry, I don't know, I don't work in that area. Or if you ask about a particular item and if it's not on the shelf, well, we don't have it, was the response. And customers were getting annoyed with this and saying, oh, well, would you not at least look to see if you've got something in the stores? And the employee would go into the stores and they'd wait around for a while and say, is he still out there waiting for this product? I don't want to go out to talk to him again. So they actually put a lot of effort in. And I will say that one of my favorite stores, is B&Q, homeware, hardware store in Liffey Valley. And the reason I like it going in there is the experience. Most of the employees are old. Okay, they're in their 50s, 60s, and some of them are in their 70s. But every morning they have these product huddles. And basically, if they move stuff around and relocated stuff, everyone is up to speed. They swap and change around ideas and where product locations are, such that when customers come in, they know exactly where to send the customer and so on. And that makes the experience for the customer far more enjoyable. And then, of course, we have decentralization maybe essential when we're talking about services, because you can't have everyone coming to the one hospital. So we have to have different hospitals and different clinics and different doctors spread out all over the place to decentralize the general service. And then mass production is difficult. You can't mass produce. Look at, we can't mass produce, what do you call it, all the same hospital services or all the same doctor services. What's the point? Because they may not be necessary. You need to respond to the actual demand and see the levels. So if we find that we need more, the general population in Ireland has a tendency to have a lot more social issues or mental issues, then we might invest more in psychiatric nursing, counselling, and so on. So we bring up that side of the medicine rather than putting all dentists out there because they're not needed as such. Okay. So then implications of perishability, obviously it's difficult to synchronize supply and demand with services. So, having services in the middle of the night. So obviously you don't have your full medical services. They generally close at around 6 o'clock, but they have a skeleton service. Midoc, I think is the name of it, or these out of hours doctor services. So they scale back to meet the demand. Now, again, if you take hospitals, for example, their busiest times can often be Friday, Saturday nights. And well, it used to be, and that has scaled back. Why? Because that's when it's most active. People are finished work, they're going out, they're entertaining, and there's a lot more socialization going on, and that's what used to cause problems and so on. Generally speaking, in hospitals, so they'd have peak emergency times at the weekends, certainly in city hospitals, and then services cannot be returned or resold. Could I go back into my consultant and say, I want you to sell me again the same service for €200? No, because my knee is different now. It's very different now. But had the process not taken place, why would I go back in? He's only going to say the same thing to me. Let's say before they did microsurgery, if I went back into him, 2 weeks after he diagnosed that yes, you need to have microsurgery, or you have a problem in your knee here, why would I go back in and ask him, well, I want a second opinion? Because it's going to be the same thing. Or you could go to another consultant. It's a different service. Can I get a second opinion to see if the first? And that happens. People do go for second opinions. In medical issues and certainly in legal issues and so on. And just for the quality of their own understanding, and just because they can't make the decision to go to the next step, they need reaffirmation. So they'll get a second opinion. That may or may not cost. So services cannot be returned or resold, obviously. So this is just another version or a table breakdown of the difference between services and products, tangible, intangible, and so on. So how are we done time-wise? Let's take Oh no, we've only got 1 hour, isn't that all? Oh my God. For some strange reason, I thought we had 2 hours. No, 1 hour. Okay, I'll start flying down through these. I want, yeah, I'll go straight to a key point. 7P's. What are they? Product, price, promotion, place. They're your traditional 4P's. Marketing used to always be on those simple 4P's. Product, physical product, price, promotion, and place. Okay? And they extended those to cover services, to include processes, physical evidence, and people. Oh my God. I thought I was after forgetting what the 7P's were. So physical evidence, people, and processes. They're extended 3P's. The reason why we the not only to cover just services, because obviously with the service you don't have a product, and but the other price exists, promotion and place. So where you're delivering the place, promotion, how you're getting people to know about your service, and price is as I say, the consultant's fee. And so the people you need to do that, the physical evidence, and the process that make up the marketing mix of the services and the products. Here's where it becomes a little bit more clouded. Every time you buy a product now, you're buying some level of service. So, for example, when you buy a car, you're buying a warranty, you're buying guarantees, and you're buying certain levels of services after 3 months, 6 months, or so many thousand kilometers. You're buying you're paying into the warranty for wear and tear of certain parts. So not only are you buying the physical car, which the core element of the car is transportation. Everything else are just the non-core elements: size of engine, color of car, blah 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 blah. And then you have this service bundle that goes on top of that. Okay, that's why now we have these 7P's to cover exactly what we're buying. If you buy a computer, you'll buy insurance most likely, and that's a level of service. One of my colleagues back in the early 2000s, he was he worked with a medical devices company. He joined Dell to set up their reverse logistics and service levels. And what that meant was that they sold their PCs or desktops and whatever, and if you needed replacement parts, or if it broke on you, how quickly they could repair it for you. And you had basically three levels of service. You know, the platinum, which was the best, someone would come out to immediately within a couple of hours, same day service, then within 3 days, or then within one working week, that kind of thing. And they they set up hubs around Europe where they'd have outsourced companies that would come in and do the service for them to replace the parts, and they'd also have the parts available to these service companies for the customers. Now here's the brilliant piece about that. You were paying insurance, and you say, would you like to take out insurance on your product? And most of us would normally do so. We say, well, just in case, because I value my computer, I need to be able to do my work, I can't have any downtime and so on. So just in case it gets stolen, gets broken, or parts fail and so on, or I have an accident, I need to have it available. So we want that peace of mind. But they give you the option to do it. Oftentimes it's defaulted. Insurance is included. Tick the box if you don't want it included. You'll find that if you're buying products on Amazon or particularly electronic items and so on, they'll ask you, do you want to have insurance for with X amount of price? Or if you buy from Harvey Norman's or any of these electronic stores, they'll include an insurance option, and you have to tick the box to say, no, I don't want this, because it's an extra payment. And again, it will depend on the value you put on the product yourself. Most of that money is pure profit. Why? Dell, for example, they know the failure rate of any of their components. That's why they offer it. That's why they're able to put in such a fantastic service. If elements break, they know the life expectancy of components. They know the kinds of accidents. They've collected data over years and years and years. So they know they can provide, that they know exactly what they have to do and how often they would have to do it. But they get the majority of people. And I remember that my colleague, we worked together for a number of years and studied for a while. I remember he said, we have an Irish expression, it was money for old rope. Okay, he said, he was actually saying a lot of consumers can be quite stupid. That's how he put it to me. He said they buy all this stuff. He said, we know the PCs are going to, last maybe 3 years on average. We know that a hard disk can fail within 6 months, and so on. That kind of stuff. And they know that the way people are using machines, that certain components will last maybe 8 months, or might last forever. But generally speaking, these are the kinds of faults because they know their technology and they've gotten all the feedback from the customers. So they know that on average, so generally speaking, they're making around 75 to 80% profit on their insurance policies alone. Okay. So here's the key point when we talk about the customers, external marketing and employees. This is the important point here in terms of employees. You're the outward facing person of your company, an employee. So how, for example, you'd see some companies' employees wearing uniforms and so on to create the image, to communicate to the companies or the customers that we are professional. Banks do it, insurance companies, shops, they might have all these same uniforms and so on. Even inside an AIT, you might see, it was a point there where all the administrative staff wore uniforms and so on. Lecturers didn't, nor do they, or should they. It depends. In hospitals, they all wear uniforms. In actual fact, I find it quite confusing. I don't know the surgical consultant versus the nurse, or they all seem to wear the same types of uniforms. Very difficult to, but years ago it was quite different. You knew that was a nurse, that was a senior nurse, that was a doctor, and that was a consultant, and so on. It became more defined, like the army, from the uniforms and the stripes and badges and so on, what level they are inside in the army, and likewise inside in the police forces, generally speaking. But in general business and commerce, how they look and know about their products and can support customers. You go in to buy a PC and they'll ask you, what would you like to buy? Do you want a desktop, laptop? What are you using it for? Is it home use, business use, and so on? And the software, what kind of budget do you have for this? They won't try and sell you, generally speaking. They don't try to sell you top of the range gaming PC when all you want to do is have a laptop for note taking inside in college. What's the point of bringing in a high end gaming laptop and so on? Okay, the employee is helping you to make your decision and providing you with the right information. You probably would have experienced that with your mobile phone plans. They might come back and say, ring you and say, do you know, Mark, I think you're on the wrong plan. Mark, you should be on this plan because you're spending too much on that plan. This plan is more cost effective to you and you will still have the same levels of service. And that often happens. So that's important from a customer. So you begin to, this is a really good company. They're very informative. They're very helpful. And as a consequence, I like dealing with them and so on. They're honest. So that's really important in terms of enabling your employees to give a good quality service to the customers, because if the customers feel happy with it, they'll come back, and that's really the name of the game. So delivering on the promise. What is the promise? You have to find out as an employee, what is the customer looking for, and you then say, I'll commit to delivering what you're looking for. You need a laptop that has these Microsoft Office package on it, is reasonably fast. You're not doing graphics, therefore you don't need a high-powered chip in it. This is the kind of price range then rather than, because I saw you looking at those machines over there, they're €2,000. This one here between €800 and 1,200 euros is more than adequate for what you need to do, and you'll have plenty of memory, and it'll be fast, and you have Wi-Fi and blah blah blah, and you've just saved the consumer maybe 1,000 or 800 euros, and the customer goes away. They will go in and say, well, was this a good decision to get to use it? And then finally say, yeah, this was bloody great, yeah, good investment, I've saved some money. Happy days. So service marketing, tangible applications exercise. So focus on a service. This is something you can do for yourselves. Are there specific challenges or barriers in any of these three areas? And of course there is. If you look at that triangle earlier on, the challenge is trying to get as much information out of the customer as to what their needs are. Okay, what are they looking for? And that kind of that ties back to your business model canvas. When you're looking at a concept or you want to introduce something, you have to understand what the customers are actually looking for and deliver. So the more and more data you gather from your customers, the more information you have, and based on that information, then you can make decisions. That's why you have management information systems. Gather the data, put it into manageable pieces of categories, information, that you then can make a decision based on this. And overall strategic assessment, how is the service organization doing on all three sides? So ways if you want to look at this and apply to a company itself. So we'll have all these different parameters that we can use to try and assess if a company is performing well in delivering a service. Are supporting systems in place to deliver promised service. So if you take, for example, our vaccine rollout at the moment, the IT systems, are they in place? Not 100%. So how that won't instill confidence in general public in terms of the rollout and consistency of the vaccination program. And because there's been a couple of glitches already in it, and the systems have failed, so that doesn't instill confidence. And are we going to be, it's not what we were promised. We were promised we're going to have this great system. So they're the kind of things. So to assess that information and then rebuild consumer confidence in the service or product. So the service triangle, again, we have the company, the providers, and the customers themselves. And then in the middle of this, we normally enable this through the technology. And that's why you have all these feedback questionnaires. Every time you buy a product on a website, you'll get a follow-up email where they might ask you, delighted you bought our product, and maybe several weeks or days afterwards, they'll send you another email. Would you like to take part in a survey, or if you use an app, would you like to rate our app, and so on? All that. So we're using it to get more and more information from our customers. It's cheap, relatively cheap, but we're using the technology to do so. Okay. And then this is where, as I just mentioned, the expanded mix. That's why there's from 4P's to 7P's. So building customer relationships through people, processes, and physical evidence. They're the additional three P's on the. So the people, as I said, the professionalism of the person, meet and greet. Even if you go into a hotel reception, they won't look at you really cross. They'll always be smiling at you and welcome you and so on. That's part of the training in terms of the people. And then the way they bring you through the registration and checking in into your room. Sometimes I say that you're coming back a second time and say, oh, welcome to see you, Professor Cashin. Your room is all ready for you, and your bags have been taken up, and you don't have to sign anything. You just go straight to your room. If you're lucky enough to go back to the same hotel the second time and so on and so on. But it is the case. It's part of the process. They've already taken my details from a previous trip and so on, and they're providing this level of process. And they might have even decided what newspapers I'm going to read, or what TV channel should be on when I enter the room and so on. And you might say, well, that's crazy. It's all part of this service to provide it. And the physical evidence, clearly, in my case, would be the fact that I didn't have to check in. I went straight up to my room, and here in my room there was a coffee was already available for me, and the TV channel was on Bloomberg News or something like that. I don't know. But they're the kind of things, those little touches, as we call it, the physical evidence of I'm being treated very well as a customer, a returning customer. And that's often the case. So that's how, having the people and having the process in there. So they would have their IT. Professor Cashin is due to come into us at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon and staying until Wednesday morning. This is what he's done before. He's had meals in the hotel, and he's also taken a drink from the minibar, and this is the kind of drink that he likes. And they take all this information because of my patterns from the first trip and store this, and then they replicate. So they have the physical processes in place, their IT systems to know what I was like as a previous customer, put all that in place, and then the people then that organize it. And the physical evidence is obviously the right mix of drinks in my fridge, the right programs, blah 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 blah. Oh, if life was so simple. And anyway, so that's just the previous 4P's, as we mentioned, and that's the full 7P's in all their glory: product, price, promotion, and place, people, processes, and physical evidence. How are we doing on time? We're just about out. Expanded mix, differentiation, packaging. I'll have a quick look at that one on our next lecture, just to finish it out, because actually, do you have a class now straight away?
Yeah.
You do, have you? Okay. Right, I'll finish up. Is there anything else in this? People, physical evidence? No, I think you've covered all the points, and that's it. We've talked about all those points on those areas. Okay, folks, we'll let you go. Apologies about the late start. We would have hit it there had we not. Yeah, we'll see you on Tuesday. Okay, and have a good weekend.